when I left uni, of all places, I worked for the tax office for 10 years. And that was like the last place I thought I'd end up. I was an auditor. I was a bad guy. I was giving people shit. I was doing all that kind of stuff and being the guy who collected tax out of people. And when I finally left due to health reasons and various other stuff that was going on, I had chronic health issues. Nothing would fix it. I hated that kind of stuff. And so eventually I went and I got a job as a lawyer. Didn't enjoy it one little bit, even though I liked the law. And to cut a long story short, I ended up basically becoming a lawyer, running my own law firm for many years, found a way to heal myself by studying medicine and teaching myself, ended up in an underground off-the-grid movement back about 20 years ago and learned about the coming resets and what governments are planning to do. I met people who used to be secret CIA agents and all kinds of stuff and was shown how the offshore banking world worked. And that was the one benefit of my health condition. I couldn't work for 2 years. So I literally just went around to all these different places. And yeah, and I remember about 2006 thinking to myself, shit, we're heading for a massive financial crash and a massive change in the world system. I've got to start preparing people for this. And so I started doing part-time seminars at the time while running my law firm and financial planning and accounting firm. But as things continue to escalate, back about 4 years ago, I remember in 2019 doing a whole lot of analysis and thinking that we're heading for a major, major bad decade in the next decade. Not everything in me knew I was right. So I got all my clients together who are high net worth, who I knew trusted me. And I said, guys, it's going to turn to shit from next year onwards. I just know that I'm right. You got to trust me. And I'm going to be teaching you guys how to structure yourself, protect your wealth, where to put it, minimize your taxes, and get ready for what's going to happen, because governments are going to start taking people's rights away from them. They're going to start doing really bad shit, and they're going to start going for people's assets. But there is a way through it. If you trust me, I'll help you out. And I just thought I'll make up a name, and I called it the Global Wealth Club. And that was literally how it started. So I had 12 high net worth clients, got them all structured, all ready. So when, of course, COVID happened and everything went down the toilet, all my clients are ringing me going like, how did you know? And I'm like, I didn't know this would happen, but I just knew something was going to happen, because people can't keep doing stupid shit like we're doing and having like, you know, Swedish teenagers telling us how to run the world for energy, and having other morons running around telling us that men can be women and women can be men, and basically go and basically use different toilets. And now I'm all for people's rights. I said, this thing's just gone over the top now. You know, I'm all for inclusiveness, but this has gone stupid now. So I said, every society in my study of civilizations, in the underground movement, and I'm a big student of history. I was fortunate enough when I was in this underground network, discovering that in 1913, they altered all the history books when the Rothschilds bought them out. So I was shown how to get access to the correct ones. I read them all and was in shock for weeks when I discovered the real history of the world, and was in fact miserable. But so I knew from every civilization collapse, we're heading for another one. But I also knew that if we're ready for it, it would be the greatest opportunity for wealth transfer, a new civilization. So I thought, I want to be on the right side of this wealth transfer and make sure my clients are. So that's a summarized version. But yeah, so the Wealth Club's very much about empowering people with finances and kind of surfing that middle ground between what I call extreme number one, the financial planners who say you've got to do this, and then the people over here who are kind of self-sufficient, but then those in the middle here who know there's something wrong with the system, but really do need guidance to get through it, get through the reset, balance their portfolio, and learn how to stand up for their rights so governments don't take everything from you. So, you know, whether it's your health, your finances, that's kind of what the vision is, to help people be sovereign in every area of life and help people to do that and get through the next decade, pretty much, and beyond.
Love that. Thanks, Warren. What a good intro. I'm sure there is going to be a lot of people on this call tonight, especially that need that help and that guidance, because I know for myself, I'm like, cool, I'm into property. A lot of people on this call would be as well, but portfolio, but I don't really know if I'm protecting it well enough, from all aspects, from a banking perspective, from a government perspective as well. So you're definitely a wealth of knowledge there. I do have a question for you. What is the most common area where it comes to asset protection that people just don't know exist? Like if there was one particular quick niche or
Yeah.
or hack that like is the most commonly unknown in your field?
That's a good question. I keep it simple. If you own nothing, you can't be shot. You know, it's kind of that's the simple rule. So if you don't have anything in your own name, I mean, you go and try and sue Bill Gates, for example, you won't find he's penniless on paper. Warren Buffett is penniless on paper. You know, anyone who knows anything about wealth, they're a penniless bum and broke on paper because they're well structured. So so as soon as you protect, so it's like if I'm in my house right now and you shoot a ball at my house, it's going to hit the wall. If I walk outside and you shoot at me, you're going to hit me, provided you're a good shot. So basically, now sure, if you've got a rocket launcher, you can probably blast it through my wall. But by and large, very few people are going to have a rocket launcher to blast through my wall. So it's the same kind of concept. You've really got to, but what I find, especially property investors, generally I admire them because I find property very difficult myself. I've never been all that good at it. I tend to get others to help me with that. But for property investors, when it comes to protection, it's one area they've never really been aware about. And it's a very area you can be very vulnerable very quickly. And as soon as someone sees you've got property, whether it's the government or someone wanting to sue you, they kind of rub their hands with joy. And I can remember when I used to be a lawyer, the first thing we would do when we're looking to sue someone is search the asset register and see, do they own shares and do they own property? And if they do, we would pretty much hit the lawsuit regardless of merit because we'd know we'd scared the shit out of them and that they would end up settling with us or the insurers would. Whereas, and even the tax office, I know from firsthand experience in being involved in insolvency and helping people who owed massive tax debt, if the tax office, let's say you owed them 500 grand in your business, okay? If you own it all in your own name, you're screwed. You're going to be sued for it. They're going to chase you. They're going to bankrupt you, payment plan you. They're going to absolutely maul you. If you own it in a company and you just shut the company down and follow a correct legal process, the ATO don't bother chasing you because it's too difficult and too involved to try and undo it. And if your properties are all owned outside your own name or in your own name, but secured by, you know, self-imposed mortgages or caveats or whatever else, you become unattractive. And we know this. I mean, I've seen firsthand the ATO walk away and leave $800,000 debt alone once they see there's no money to be got. It's one thing for a government to spend $5 grand in getting a default judgment in a local court that will take them a few weeks, or spending 1 year in the Supreme Court with 100 grand trying to argue that the mortgage should be overturned. And the general policy is if it's less than a certain amount, they can't be fucked. So it's just, people don't realize that, and they go to lawyers and accountants who kind of don't know what they're doing with the real world. So my one hack is own nothing and control everything. Like I own nothing in my own name. I'm broke, I'm miserable, I have a horrible life and I don't own anything. And so as soon as people see that, they straight away, there's just no point going after me because there's nothing to get.
Awesome. So basically owning everything in, when you say structures, I'm assuming you're referring to company structures, trusts, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, foundations, companies and trusts. I mean, the main thing is to get the concept, you know. So as soon as it's in the name of Warren Black, it means now you want to sue Warren Black because you don't like me anymore. I've got money in my name. You go, you little ripper, you'll hit me with a lawsuit. And I've done this when I was a lawyer and we had someone, you know, we had people, and I would just say to people straight out, yeah, this person's got some assets in their name. Let's just hit them with a nice little letter. We'll scare the shit out of them and bring them in the line, you know. And generally I was pretty ethical as a lawyer. I didn't take on cases unless I thought it, you know, that my client had really been screwed over. So I used to get great joy out of helping many of my clients just by knowing how to hit back, you know, and do it with the government as well. It was one of the things that stood me in good stead during COVID, I might add. You know, I kind of hit back using my stuff and when people were trying to bully, you know, it was quite fun. But it's the same kind of principle. If you've got stuff in your own name, you're very vulnerable. And what I would ask everyone here is just imagine that one day you're sitting at home, you've got your property portfolio, you open the mail and you see someone is suing you or government's coming after you for 300 grand tax debt. I think all of you would just go, and you would kind of freak out. And you would know in that instant you're in real trouble because if your properties are in your own name, yeah, this is what will happen. If they take you on, if they get the default judgment in the court, the bailiff they'll force a sale of your property. It'll be a fire sale. It'll be a very low price just to some person buying a foreclosure auction. You'll end up owing some kind of money, not basically to the person suing you. You'll end up owing money to everyone else. And then you'll be spending the next time stressed trying to stave off bankruptcy. So it's many people get car insurance and get health insurance, but they won't insure their wealth. And they sit there with large amounts of money in their own name, whereas I'll do it for car. Like I got car insurance, not because I plan to crash my car next week, because I really don't want to do that. But if someone hits my car and writes it off, then at least I know I'm covered. You know, like 10 years ago, I hit my car into a lamppost, wrote it off and almost died. And it was covered by insurance. But, you know, why would you do that and then not insure your net worth? That's what I tell people. And in fact, in all the high net worth seminars I used to go to across the world, the general rule of thumb was you should be using 5% of your money to always keep your wealth safe and your tax minimized. That was the rule of thumb they would teach.
Love that. That's cool. 5%. We'll take that away. Thank you. It's funny. I have a story about a mentor of mine who owns 250 properties. Thank goodness most of them were in trust, because one of those properties he accidentally forgot to insure one year. That property happened to have burnt down, and the tenant went to go after him because the tenant's like, well, my car was in the garage, so you got to try and pay for that. But no, they couldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. So
yeah, we've seen that both sides. I can remember I've seen good people get sued and they weren't protected and literally fall apart from stress and have a nervous breakdown. And then I've seen absolute arseholes who scam people, but they were so well structured. I remember saying to the client, we'll never get money out of them. This guy got structured by Jesus. I mean, I couldn't crack this structure if I tried.
Structured by Jesus. And Warren is our Jesus here tonight. This is him on this platform. All right. So question for you. What does sovereignty mean to you?
Oh, I like the definition in the dictionary. It means to be basically self-governing. So sovereignty means that you are the captain of your own ship. So I'm the captain of my own health ship. I always like to start with health because we've got a vivid demonstration. Like basically I'm sovereign about my own health. Do I use doctors? Yeah, sometimes. Do I engage health practitioners? Yeah, I'm a paranoid about my health. I've got like about 3 different chiropractors. I've got different naturopaths, herbalists, homeopaths. I taught myself medicine. My health issues were so severe. I had this autoimmune fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, RSI, massive, kind of depression kind of issues for like years. And I had everything told to me from you got tendinitis to you got this to you, it's all in your head, it's psychosomatic to you just need to basically go and, go on antidepressants. And I, in the end, thought, blow these idiots, I'm just going to teach myself. So I went and studied health, and I kind of went and tried every different person under the planet, tried energy healing, I tried crystals, and weirdly enough, kinesiology, crystals, and a few spiritual healing, along with some dietary changes, got me fixed up by and large. I remember when my gallbladder, I was having gallstones and I was in chronic agony, rolling around like in agony. And of course, the idiots wanted to take my gallbladder out. And I'm like, you're not going to take my gallbladder out. I mean, that'd be ridiculous. I said, why would you do that for? And they're like, well, the guy's saying that's what we do. I says, no, that's what your insurers are telling you to do. Am I right? You and I both know there's other ways of doing it. And the guy said, well, yeah, off the record there is, but that's what we have to say. So I said, yeah, I'm going to go and do my own research. I'll come back in 3 days' time, and then I'll tell you what I'm going to do. And I did went and taught myself medicine about the gallbladder, and I went back and said, look, there's 4 different treatment protocols that I've worked out. Last resort is to pull the bloody thing out. So I'd say you can always do shockwave therapy, you can do this, or I said you can just do a cleanse. So I said, I'm just going to go on a 30-day fast. I'm going to use lemon juice, olive oil, and some salts, and I'll just get all the stones out of me. And then I'll come back and tell you how it goes. So I did that, and I got all the stones out of me and just got on with life. So that kind of taught me, after that, I just didn't trust anyone. So of course, with health, in the last 2 years, we've watched the whole world go, oh, my chief health officer is God, and we've got to do what our doctors tell us. And we've seen firsthand at the damage that's gone on with people being coerced into some stupid, medicine, which basically was provisionally approved at the TGA, in which even the head of AstraZeneca openly said, this is a trial until 2024, on his speech in 30th of July 2020, before the European governments. So generally what this has taught us is how important it is to be sovereign with your health. And it doesn't mean we don't listen to doctors, because I do listen to doctors still, but you want to make sure that you vetted their knowledge and just don't passively take it, because my body's on the line. So what I mean sovereignty is with finances, it's your money. If your accountant fucks up, you're the one who gets into trouble, not them. If you make a bad property deal because someone gives you silly advice, you're the one who lands of it and has to go through the stress. So you've got to be sovereign in the sense of responsible for your own financial ship, responsible for your own wealth, but you use people like, obviously like you, Olivia, to guide with property, who you trust, people like me to guide on protecting your wealth and your taxes. But by and large, sovereignty means you're in charge of your own ship, and they're the people who are going to get through the Great Reset. They're the people who are going to ultimately grow good wealth. And throughout history, they're the people who never get rich. Robert Kiyosaki says very clearly in his cash flow quadrant that there's four main skills you need to master wealth. The skill of sales and marketing, the skill of investing, the skill of business, and the skill of tax and asset protection. So he said all of them you've got to master and be sovereign in those areas. So yeah, that's my long answer, but you're captain of your own ship. You make your decisions, not someone outside of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, Warren, I might personally take you up on some of those tips that you learned about the gallstones, because it turns out someone else has them around here lately as well.
Oh, really?
I've been told to have it out. Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah. No, look, don't. Whatever you do, you don't need to. I mean, I'll give you the formula afterwards. There's a Dr. Richard Schultz, and one of the doctors in our own Global Wealth Club, who's a very conscious doctor. He's got a similar cleanse method that will basically over 30 days just fix you up. So.
Love it. I'm going to hit him up after this. There we go. Dr. HB, says Jasmine. Love it. All right. So next question for you is, out of all of the things that you couldn't do that restricted you with all of your licenses, now what is the top thing that you now love to teach or say that you were restricted by your licenses previously?
I can just say what I want, really. The only thing I can't do is give specific advice on financial products. I don't want to, because I think people should be empowered. And I can't write my own legal documents, which I'm glad, because I hate doing it anyway. I prefer to get someone else to do it. I can't do tax returns, which I'm glad, because I don't like doing them anyway. And yeah, I could just simply sit and talk to people like you and rabbit on and have people think, live on the illusion I know what I'm talking about, But basically, yeah, like I can basically teach people the truth rather than sit there in fear like most accountants, like I really shouldn't say that. I just say, what the truth is, like what you can do with your structures. I believe in being legal and compliant. I really do. I don't see the point of doing anything illegal and stupid. But there's so much you can do legally. Like a good example, like most accountants are terrified about mentioning offshore. Nowhere is it legal, and the ATO will tell you to go offshore and structure yourself. That's perfectly legal. It's perfectly legal to do foundations. You just can't do weird money laundering, tax avoidance schemes for an offshore company, and you wouldn't want to do that anyway. So,
okay, awesome. Which was actually leading to my next question around citizenship in other countries. Can you comment on some of those examples, and how does one even get started, and what high level, what's the process?
Look, it's a little bit like, I like to break it down in terms of like with property. Like if you think of it like someone comes to you for property from the very beginning, and there'll be various levels. Like first you got to get one and do that. And then before you can own 250 properties, a commercial hotel, no doubt there's many stages to get there. And really sovereignty around wealth is very similar. Like if you've never used a structure before, you should first get used to the idea of a structure. Becoming a citizen of another country, look, many of our clients are doing that now. There's so many places you can go to and move overseas to live. So if you've got an income which is sovereign and you're not reliant on a job in Australia, there's many places depending on what you're looking for. So if you're over 50, for example, and you are happy to live somewhere else, Thailand's got a great retirement visa system. Mexico, Bali, Costa Rica, if you're happy to live there, you can get some amazingly low taxes. Some of my clients have lived in Mexico. Literally, COVID didn't even exist virtually over there. No one gave a rat's ass about it. Vaccines are voluntary, masks are voluntary. They don't really pay tax over there. So that's one option that many have done. Then there's also the idea, so you can move to places like that. If you've got a lot of money behind you, you can buy a residency in places like Montenegro, like many of the elite do, or, Montenegro is one example where you can buy it. Panama, you can buy one. St. Kitts, you can buy one. Monaco, you can buy one. Austria, there's various places you can actually buy one. And so that means you don't have to live there as such, you just can buy one. So many of the world's sports people and tennis people, they just buy a residency somewhere. They then travel around the world and have a base thing, because the main thing that the Australian law says is that, fortunately, we live in Australia, not the US, because US, once you're a US taxpayer, you're always a US taxpayer. Whereas Australia doesn't do that. Australia says once you leave Australia and you genuinely sever and get yourself a new residency, we accept that and you can kind of get on with life. So Bali's another one, Tara. Yeah, no, Bali is a place where many people have been moving to. It's another good place you can move to. And yeah, Ubud seems to be the popular place at the moment.
Ubud, love that. So good. All right, awesome. There's so many countries there. We'll have to take them down.
There's so many. I just say to people, it comes down to whether you want to live in the place or whether you more just want to travel around a little bit. You don't care where you live. And if you kind of want to travel around, you're best to buy a residency somewhere. But otherwise, if you want to live, there's some really good places where you can move and live there and become residents. So
yeah, because I'm thinking for a lot of property investors, especially a lot of my clients, where a lot of these guys are all going to be, if they're not already financially free and dependent through passive income, most of my clients are going to be on that way in the next 5 years. And so by the age of 40, 45, it's like, well, if they want to go travel in other countries around the world and not pay any taxes as well, like, yeah, that's good to know as well.
Yeah, well, the main thing is that if you're going to do that, for example, the way the Australian tax law works is that if you live in Australia, you're taxable on income in Australia and worldwide. So if you're living here, as well as your Aussie income, you'll pay tax on your income from China, your income from Europe, everywhere. If you become a non-resident, you don't pay taxes on any of your foreign income. You still pay taxes on Australian sourced income. Now, most Australian sourced incomes is way to avoid that, or minimize that by, just changing the way to the contracts. Property is a little bit harder, but even so, once you become a non-resident, even with property income, you can set up management systems offshore and stuff like that. It does become a lot easier to minimize tax once you move offshore and things like that. And what I say is you just got to study what the high net worth people do in Australia, because Peter Martin in 2016, a journalist in Sydney, he did a documentary or study on the richest Australians. And the funny thing was he actually wrote to me very annoyed at me because he said I wasn't writing that article to say it was a good thing, it was a bad thing, because I quote him, he pretty much shows how none of the rich pay tax in Australia. They just don't do it. They all pay tax advisors, and all of them use a mixture of offshore companies, public foundations like auxiliary foundations, things like that. So there's many ways that the wealthy minimize taxes. So by and large, you can put a tax is optional, which it is. The more money you make, the less tax you basically pay. That's how
Love that. Warren, what is an auxiliary?
Oh, private auxiliary, it's just a special foundation where it enables people who are philanthropists to set up property or purchase assets and basically pay no taxes on the income or anything like that. So some property investors, basically use private auxiliaries or public benevolent to buy property and things like that. So
love that. Is that another type of company structure then?
Yeah, it's a foundation. Like, for example, a church is an example of a foundation,
Okay.
So there's like companies, there's trusts, there's foundations. So foundations are like, like charitable philanthropic things. So like a church is an example of a charitable foundation is tax-free. A homeless relief shelter is an example of that. An auxiliary foundation is where you're buying property, but then the income you're using to do good philanthropically. And what I tend to find is with wealthy people, most wealthy people are being philanthropic anyway. I mean, you and I both know as you start to make a lot of money, you want to help other people. So, but most people don't do it in a tax-effective way. And many a time I've had people who are making a lot of money, and I'm like right now, I've got a client who does a major amount of mental health stuff into the community, to do that. But he makes a lot of money in his mental health consulting for big companies, but he also does a lot of youth initiatives to help people. And I said to him, we can move all your youth initiatives and free pro bono stuff into a foundation, which is a mental health foundation. You can then move money into that one that will be tax-free, and you can take tax-free benefits from it. And I showed him how to do it. So he's like, wow, so nothing illegal. He just did what he was doing in a tax-effective way, because the Australian government really like to reward philanthropists. In other words, people who are doing good to help the community. There's a lot of grants and, tax benefits and things like that. So
wow,
one thing our government's very good over here. We've got a great system for rewarding, the philanthropists.
Very cool. That's very interesting to know. Okay. So tell me, what are at the moment, what's something that you're studying or you're researching at the moment? I just want to find out a little bit more about Warren. What is one of your favorite topics in life at the moment?
Oh gosh. Honestly, my biggest passion has been since I was young, has been anything to do with the shamanic, the spiritual, and what's behind everything, about the secrets of life. I've been like that since I was young. I spend every spare moment, like I've gone to Vegas, like just to work with shamans. I've gone on UFO hunts in Sedona in the middle of the desert. I'm into all kinds of alternate stuff. I've gone and studied the secrets of great yogis in India who could do miracles, and ones who supposedly never died and became immortal in the Himalayas. I mean, anything that's completely out there like that, I'm into. And, and studying about the art of the mind body. Like right now, I'm doing homeopathy. In fact, this is one of the, best like homeopaths about like flat energy medicine. So yeah, anything to do with shamanic, spiritual stuff, like about different religions. I've studied every major religion I could find. Yeah, I've always had this belief that nothing's impossible. If I think I can do it, I probably can. So, I've been trying to work out like how to levitate and how to fly. I've been studying all that and how people do it. So yeah, I'm really out there. And plus my other thing I'm doing is pole dancing, and that's convinced Jasmine and all my kids that I have mental health issues of my own. But yes, that's my other thing. I'm doing pole dancing as a side interest.
That's so cool. Why are you doing pole dancing, Warren?
I just want to do it. It's just like I've always liked watching it, been fascinated with it. And I think for me, because when I was a kid, I had so many health issues. I was an asthmatic, I was sick, I was a bit weak. I was good in sport, but I always kind of I would never really regarded myself as a strong kind of guy. And part of my whole like getting better was I always had constant back pain. So I ended up building a lot of strength in my core, in my back, working with Qigong masters, mind-body stuff, and I healed myself a lot of mind-body. Once I healed myself, I thought, well, if I don't find a purpose for my body, I'll probably just get sick again. So I just started initially with doing more dancing. I did a lot of Pilates. I started doing a lot of hiking, a lot of mountain climbing and walking over a number of years. And then it just kind of, then after my partner died last year and kind of shocked my world a little bit, after getting over the worst of that, I thought how fleeting life was. So I thought, I'm going to tick off my bucket list this year and just do all the things that are crazy, but I really want to do. So it started off by going to breakdancing classes. So I'm still doing that because I've always wanted to break dance since I watched Michael Jackson as a kid. I'm a piano player as well. And then of course, with some of the guys from the dance group, they invited me to go to the Voodoo Lounge strip club because one of the guys works there as a male stripper. So we went there just for a kind of a boys' night out. And then next minute, I'm watching the competition they were doing, and I was in astonishment. One of the dancers was insane what she could do. And I just kept saying, that girl is like the best pole dancer I've ever seen. And the guy said, oh, yeah, she teaches clients. I said to him, joking, oh, maybe I'll be her next student. And then next day, he's contacting me saying, yeah, she really wants to teach you. I said, really? So I said, oh, why not? So I turned up and literally, I actually really enjoyed it because it's so hard. It's like the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And the scariest thing I've ever had to do was go upside down, hold onto the pole with my legs with my head pointing straight down, knowing if I let go, I was going to whack my head. And so it's kind of like new challenges to kind of open me up to new ways of thinking. And what I'm finding, it's helping my right brain open up more. And I'm finding that I'm getting better with my tax planning. I'm seeing things differently. So yeah, look, I'm continuing to do a lot of business stuff on this. Like I'm working hard in the business, but it's like my side interest, like shamanic work, pole dancing, anything like that.
There you go. Yeah, so pole dancing equals better tax accounting and planning. Love that. Maybe we should all get into pole dancing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm one of only 4 guys in the whole studio who does it. So, and in fact, my teacher said, the reason I want to help you is that all of the people that I teach are generally either strippers or young people. And she said, I've never had a guy where you're at in life who's doing it for the reasons you're doing. She said, and then what was even funnier was there was a video done of me doing some stuff and put on Instagram. And they contacted me saying, we've never had so much views. It went viral. And I even had staff seeing these videos of me doing lap dancing and pole dancing. And I'm like, I'm more famous for that than I am for taxes now. That's kind of
That's the
scary.
first thing I'm going to go Google after this tonight. Warren pole dancing viral video.
There was like a lap dancing thing. It was on Instagram. You got to look on Instagram. It's kind of viral. They're like 15,000 views in like 2 days. It was crazy.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, cool. And so tell us what's happening with Global Wealth Club at the moment. Who do you guys typically serve? And what are the core things that you're trying to teach? I believe that where do a lot of your clients come from?
Look, a lot of our clients came really until last year. It was overall just mainly high net worth clients and kind of, like I said, just like a bit of a background thing to help people. But last year when the lockdown started hitting en masse, and I remember in West Australia in April, we had the second lockdown. And I remember the fear that was throughout our state. And I remember just seeing people just so frightened as I went out shopping. And I remember thinking, and I remember coming back home and saying to my guys, now we've got to help people. I said, we can't just sit here and let this shit go on. So I said, we're going to announce a webinar. And I said, how much are we going to charge? I said, we're not going to charge. I said, we're going to be doing a heap of free webinars, and we're just going to empower people, because we've got to stand up and teach people their rights, because we can't let governments do this absolute shit. I said, this is bullshit. I said, this is the kind of reasons why Black people got their houses burnt down and put them separately in buses 60 years ago. This is why people get forced to war. We can't just sit here and let governments do this. It's morally reprehensible. So we started teaching common law rights and knowing how to stand up with the mandates and all that. And literally they went viral. Like everyone was sharing our webinars. We blew our Zoom account. We had to increase our size. We just went bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so many of our clients originally came just seeking free help about the mandates and stuff like that. So that was mainly what we were doing for quite a while, and teaching people about masks, how to read mandates, how to protect themselves, alternate ways around them, and kind of doing a more support network to help people get through the pandemic. So we're very much focused on that. But I think the universe rewards people who does good just for the sake of doing good. Because when I did that, I just did that because I really, really wanted to help the state and my country. I just thought, I can't sit here and let this happen. So next minute clients were coming up and saying, well, can you guys help us with your structures? And next minute we were getting clients come and referring their high net worth friends. And really a lot of our clients have come from all that kind of network, people who are by and large what I call awake to what's going on. They're aware that there's a problem. They want to take some action, but really don't know what to do about some guidance. And it's a mixture of people who either got a bit of money or people that don't, and really want to know how to preserve what they've got and get through and get a little bit more financially sovereign. Because we teach people like basic financial mentoring. We do that just to get people started. Obviously, that's why I'm excited we've teamed up with you, because the one thing we don't have in the club is a good property speaker. So I'm glad you're going to be speaking for us as well, because we're more about teaching people about what the secrets of the book of wealth, which is balanced portfolio management. So the best way is a balanced portfolio where you're covering all risks. And the way I tell people, it's like the casino. The only one who always makes money is the casino. And the reason why is they've calculated in advance. They know the odds and statistics. And equally, all of the most wealthiest in the world, if you study what Gates, Buffett, every single super wealthy individual actually does, they're very, very clever. They balance their portfolio across multiple interests, so that if something goes wrong in one field, they get caught out. So property is a great investment, but let's say you got all your money in property, and let's just say worst case scenario, the government lose their marbles on your property, you're really exposed. So it's good to be exposed across cash, property, cryptos, gold, shares, private equity. So the smart investors are generally well diversified, and we teach about that kind of stuff. And generally, the people who are quite new to that, we just teach them the basics. And then those who've already got the basics, we then have high net worth groups with very sophisticated investors who open up private, investing opportunities for them and all that kind of stuff.
That's cool. And Warren, you said that you started off with having like a lot of high net worth clients. Where did you meet these guys in the first place? If we backtrack a little bit with your time, because you toured a lot around Australia, is that right? Around the world.
Because I was speaking at events, because what happened was when I was a lawyer and I was working with clients, I've always been a bit out there, like I can remember getting up at my own event and calling the government a bunch of greedy gold-digging scumbags who want to raid you. And I had people couldn't believe I'd say that publicly, and they all thought it was funny, so they were referring their friends. And then next minute, I'm being asked to speak at major wealth creation events. And it all happened because originally when I was working in this law firm as a lawyer, I worked as a lawyer in a law firm for quite a few years. And a lot of high net worth clients are coming to me through that because I was working with a very sophisticated one. And then when I started speaking at these events, and I was asked to speak at worldwide events and being flown to America and the Fiji to speak on this stuff, and then across Australia, next minute, all the high net worth people are hearing about it. They're referring people, and and one thing led to another. So a lot of them were just hearing of me because I built a pretty big name in teaching on this stuff, just because I was teaching about, back 15 years ago about government violations of rights that were coming, about this kind of stuff, and about how governments would be, and how to protect your wealth. So generally, just for me consistently being out there, people heard about me. So a lot of my stuff this day is word of mouth. Like people just I get this message like, yeah, I've been referred to you and I've heard about you. So we get a lot of word of mouth at the moment.
Love that. Awesome. Very intriguing, actually. Question: if I was somebody who needed more assistance from Global Wealth, where would I go to? Where do I start? Being like, right, I need some of this help that Warren speaks of. Where's the first place you reckon I should go?
Oh, look, basically what we would do is the Global Wealth Club site. I'm just trying to get the name. Then I was almost about to look now. What an inspiration. Probably everyone's not going to go to Global Wealth Club. You've got to go looking on Instagram to find me. So that's our website, www.globalwealthclub.com. And then when you go there, you'll find there's a lot of free education. And the reason why is that I tell people, like, how much does it cost you to use Google? So how much does it cost you, Olivia, to use Google?
Nothing.
How much does it cost you to use Facebook?
Nothing.
How much does it cost you to use Instagram?
Nothing.
WhatsApp?
Nothing.
How big are they, though? They're massive. So in other words, most of their service is free. But how do they make their money? Google make their money from basically charging high fees to serious clients who are really going to invest in Google and use their platform. Facebook are very similar, Instagram is similar. So I've always said to our team, I want us to have the best free education in the world when it comes to finances, sovereignty, and all that. So we're still working to improve it, but there's a whole free section. I said, I want that people could literally come to our site and get incredible value for free with never paying us a cent. So when you go to the site, you'll find a heap of free stuff. You just got to sign up, become a member, but rest assured, we're not going to abuse that and then try and sell you into $1 million program or anything. You just go on there. There's lots of free education. You can, there's an announcement. We do regular live webinars, which are free, economic updates. And then on top of that, there's an option that if people think, actually, we would like to talk to someone about how to protect our wealth, how to grow it, and just find out more, no obligation. There's a separate form you can complete, put your name and details, and then the lovely Jasmine who's on here right now, who will have a chat to them, and just go through the options, no obligation. So like Google, people who want to use our service as a platform, they can talk to Jasmine. For those who don't, can just go. We've got a property section, how to protect your properties. It's all free, which goes through, things you can do. So you can watch that, and without spending a single cent with us, you can basically, get some value. We've got some stuff on common law and rights and mandates and knowing your government and preparing for what's ahead, about the Great Reset, and all of it's free. We've got a YouTube channel. But yeah, for those who then want some serious help and are really keen to get your wealth protected and want to be super duper deluxe, then yeah, you can book in, and we've got various levels of, advice packages to mentoring packages or whatever else you're looking for.
Awesome. Sign me up. I'm filling out that form tonight. That's for
Absolutely.
sure.
Got it, Olivia.
Jasmine's left the call, but she'll be getting that form for me straight away. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I love that. Cool. All right. Well, I was going to throw it back to everyone else that's on the call. If Warren, do you have time to do a quick Q&A to ask any other questions?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Well, guys, throw in your questions in the chat if you have any. We can ask Mr. Warren himself. I'll just see if actually there are any questions up here. I'm going to scroll up. Nathan was like, yeah, I love it. It's so cool. Josh is like, nope, tax. So good. Tara, do you have any questions?
Yeah, it's good. Everyone's great here. Everyone's being so friendly. Tara puts credit to coal dancers. They have core strength. It's actually really true. Like even little things like Tara, like, being able to, you got to be able to be strong. And originally I only got my core strong was because my back kept being in pain. And that was the one, once I got my core strong, I was good. But yeah, with pole dancing, you got a strong core and your legs are going to be really strong and flexibility. So I literally have to do 30 minutes of stretching every day now, like I do advanced stretching to get myself to the point I can do the splits. So that's my aim. So
Good on you. They're probably one of the most fittest, healthiest. How old are you now, Warren?
I'm a 21-year-old in a slightly older body.
I love that.
But yes, I'm kind of over the halfway mark slightly. But yes, everyone actually thinks I'm in my early 40s. And when I was biologically tested, I actually am like 15 years younger biologically than I am because I eat because of my diet, and like my health is like immaculate now. Like literally when I got medically checked the other day, there's like not a thing wrong with me at all.
Oh,
so
well
it's quite
done.
ironic, so.
Good on you. You had a few autoimmune diseases and you've had a spinal injury as well. Is that right?
Oh yeah, you name it. I had everything. Like I had asthma, hay fever, dyslexia. I had, back injuries, numerous back injury, hip injury, hamstring injuries, calf injuries, broke my foot, broke my finger. There's more what I didn't do to myself. Had chronic depression, had major gut inflammation stuff. Yeah, RSI, chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue. Yeah, no, I was a walking encyclopedia. So gallbladder, gallstones, bladder infection. Yeah, no, I've kind of had a lot of fun really in that area. So
absolutely lot. There you go. Tara's asking, do you have a Kangen water machine?
No, but it's good. I've heard about it. I use the wellness filter, which I find really good. Plus I use a Tesla disc, that's really good. That energizes water. Sarah says, when setting up entities in other countries, how do you bring your money back into Australia without incurring penalties? Yeah, look, good question. Depends what you mean by penalties. Whether penalties you mean taxes, whether you mean high costs, all that kind of stuff. So look, basically setting up offshore while living in Australia doesn't work a lot for minimizing taxes. It more works for asset protection, as a general rule. So it only really works if you actually have a legitimate offshore business making legitimate, income, from legitimate overseas clients. And even then, the moment it comes back into Australia, there's not a lot you can really do. So I always tell people, if you're living in Australia as a resident, offshore is going to more help you in terms of either asset protection or, basically, yeah, if you're Malcolm Turnbull, for example, what Malcolm Turnbull did was set up a Cayman Islands investment fund. He then, set up the right board of directors. So basically it was all tax-free, So most of the politicians and the high net worth politicians just have offshore companies with basically offshore boards, but it's quite expensive to set that up. So to avoid penalties, you've really got to either be, or taxes, you've really got to basically you got to be where you spend in the hundreds of thousands to set yourself up correctly and get the board structure set up and all that kind of stuff offshore. Otherwise, so most people can't really do a lot or become a non-resident or use foundations within Australia and things like that. Linda says you might like medical mediums info. Yeah, no, medical mediums, great. Love medical medium stuff. I've used quite a few of his stuff. Alfred, investing in yourself is priceless. I'll check out the site. No, absolutely agree. Brian, if someone in a mix of properties and own name and trust, this is a good question. I'd like to answer this. Brian says, if someone had a mix of properties in his own name and trust, would you be looking to move those properties in your own name? So that's a really good question. What I was wondering, Olivia, are you able to let me share screen, like make me a co-host or give me screen sharing permission? Because if I do that, I can usually answer this question by Brian.
You should be able to do it. Let me know if that works.
Okay, let's try. Oh, yeah, good. Okay. So can you all set a whiteboard?
Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, it's a good question. So let's just say, please forgive my artwork. It's not my strongest subject. But let's just say you got these properties sitting in your own name. Okay. So you think, yikes, let's just say that let's say this property is worth, I don't know, 500K and you've got about, 200K debt on it. Let's just say, let's say this second little property over here, this one's worth, I don't know, 600K and got about 250K debt, you know. So obviously both those properties have got a reasonable equity exposure. So you think to yourself, oh shit, I better move it into a trust. Now, there's some issues if you do that. Okay, so let's just say you go to some UBIT accountant who says, hey, let's just move it into the trust and that will solve your problems. Now, as property investors, you'd be very aware of this lovely little government gift called stamp duty, where they, you know, love to basically charge money simply on the value of the property. And another equally lovely tax called land tax, which just basically gets done on that. So the moment you start moving properties into trust, you're going to be hit with stamp duty, number one. Number two, if you rely on negative gearing, it can affect your negative gearing. Not always, it depends on your other scenario. So there's three problems with just moving into a trust. So let me just write it up here. So three problems, you know, basically moving into a trust, so to speak. So hang on.
And lucky most of us on this call would all know that we don't do negative gearing, we do positive gearing.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure you do. But so number one is basically stamp duty.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is basically possible land tax. And number three is also negative gearing. I'm putting a question mark because stamp duty is a definite problem. Land tax in some states, if you put it in a trust like New South Wales, they pump you a bit extra. So you can end up paying more land tax if you move it in there. The other, and then of course, negative gearing may be affected depending on whether you got income from other sources and things like that. And then the other problem as well is that you could end up with fringe benefits tax as well in certain situations if you move your family home in or shit like that. So, I mean, I've put three problems. So yeah, it's not really an extra problem. It's just a kind of thing to note. So the other option that you can do, and if you go onto the website and watch the free education on this, you will actually see this strategy we talk about called a second mortgage. Now, to explain what I mean by that, you can basically avoid the stamp duty issue and avoid the land tax surcharge and avoid the negative gearing problem and still get the benefits of asset protection. And I know this from as a lawyer, which is 99% as effective as moving into a trust. Like literally the level of difference is minuscule. Because in the real world, if someone's going to sue you and sees that there's a mortgage on your property from the bank and also from your own trust, they know straight away that they're going to be having a horrible problem arguing in the Supreme Court to undo your mortgage. So what you would do is this. Now, keep in mind, this is very simplified. And if you watch the videos on the site, you can watch it in more depth. So I really want to not overcomplicate this. But let's just say hypothetically that you over here, you know, and I'll give you long hair, Olivia.
Thanks.
So there you go. You know, long hair. Let's just say that you basically, in theory anyway, you put some money into the trust. The trust makes a mortgage back over your houses, makes a loan back to you. And then in exchange for you making a loan from your trust back to you, you now take a mortgage over your property. So what this now means is rather than have the 200K, let's say there's another mortgage of 250K by, you know, Olivia Trust on that property. So now what happens is anyone seeing this property goes, oh shit, literally the whole thing is chopped up by debt. So if anyone sues you and they force a property sale, the first money goes to the bank, the next money goes to you anyway. So that scares off the tax office, it scares almost everyone off. Someone has to be really serious and willing to put a shitload of money in to undo it. Would they undo it if they took you to court? Most likely. For the first 5 years, generally a second mortgage can be undone in court. But in the real world, it rarely does. And if you have real cash, you can basically set up in a way where it can't be undone in court anyway. So for now, if you watch the videos, you'll see what I mean. The main thing to get is the concept. So imagine if, rather than you moving the property into that trust and getting walloped with stamp duty and land tax, the property stay in Olivia's name, but you're still protected. So you get your cake and eat it too. You got no stamp duty extra, you got no extra land tax, you got none, you can still do negative gearing, but suddenly, rather than just have your Commonwealth Bank mortgage for 200K, you've also got the Olivia Ward mortgage trust having a loan over it as well. So if the tax office or I want to sue you because I don't like you anymore, I'm looking at your register, and I'm going to sue you, and I see that the Commonwealth Bank, and I also see there's a trust over it, I can tell you now as a lawyer, I turn to the client and say, have you got 100 grand to give me to take this on? Because we can't just go to the local court and do a quick summary judgment. We're going to actually have to go to the Supreme Court and challenge the mortgage. So in real terms, it gives you tremendous protection without actually moving the property out of your own name into a trust.
Now that's a hack that I'm glad that I know. Thank you so much. So
Yeah.
there you go. What a really, really good question. Who answered that? Brian. Well done.
Yeah,
So yeah, Brian,
question.
I know we've
Yeah,
spoken. You've got a couple of properties and you put personal name. That's good to know. Pulling out the equity, essentially putting that into a trust, into the business trust, and then having the cash flow from that property anyway, if it's cash flowing, putting that inside a trust to then pay off that equity essentially.
Yes.
Oh no, because it's the debt, because it would be new loan. Awesome. That's so helpful. Very helpful.
It is. It's really helpful. No, this is the stuff I learned as a lawyer. And keep in mind, always think of me as a 17-year-old boy in school who did not want to study for his exams. I really couldn't be stuffed. I wanted to play sport. I wanted to be out doing into cricket. I wanted to be out, on the river doing windsurfing. So I just literally learnt my whole 5 years in 6 weeks by taking a gamble and working it out by working a hack. So I've spent my life working at hacks, and this is a really good hack. It works so well in the real world. Now, keep in mind, I have to emphasize this. If you go and see a lawyer in a suit and tie, he'll sit there with a very straight face. Oh, yes, you can do that. But the problem is, this is what will happen. It can be undone. But as I tell the lawyers, in the real world, who's going to challenge a second mortgage? Oh, hardly anyone. But still, we can't tell the client that. I go, well, whatever. That's why I'm not registered anymore. So I'll say it. In the real world, yes. I mean, if you set one of these up, can it be undone? Yes, if someone is really serious, it's like if someone really wants to shoot me and blow a missile through my house, they'll probably kill me, okay? But you have to be pretty darn serious. So if someone really wants to sue Olivia Ward and they're cashed up and they're willing to put $10 million into suing you, they probably will get your money in the end. But you have to be damn unlucky.
Yeah, that's good. Now, on that, Katie actually just asked a really good question. Is it better to do this versus buying a property in the trust in the first place?
That's a good question. And the answer is, unfortunately, it's a case by case, because generally, as a general rule, it's better to buy the property in a trust. Okay, so this is my general rule of thumb. As a rule of thumb, except for your family home usually better off to buy in your own name and do this mortgage hack. You're better off to buy it in a trust if you can. If you're in your situation, because if you don't buy negative geared properties, and it sounds like you guys are smart and you don't do that, then buying through a trust would make a lot of sense. The only possible hitch that you've got to be mindful of is depends where you're buying, because some states charge extra land tax in the trust. So you've got to kind of weigh up your numbers with that. So that's why, as a general rule, if you're not doing negative gearing, then the answer is yes. You definitely want to buy anything other than a personal property trust, but you just have to be mindful of land tax surcharges. That's the only thing, and check how severe that is and how badly that will affect you.
And on that note, Warren, what's your thoughts on what you think the states are going to do now that Queensland tried to triple taxes basically, but are like, look, now we're not doing it. They took it back. Do you think that is now opening up the gates for other states to be like, yeah, let's try and tax these investors as well?
The issue that governments have, and there's a book called The Sovereign Individual, written in 1995 by Lord Rees-Mogg and Davidson, probably the Bible on this topic. They predicted, using demographic data, civilization collapses, the future of the Western world. And so far, they have literally predicted the last 27 years since they wrote their book, almost to the year. It's freaky. They have been so accurate, because what they do is they're just simply following trends, and they're comparing the Western world to the Roman Empire and how that collapsed. And so far, we followed the script. So the Roman Empire, one of the greatest empires, completely collapsed and was taken by Attila the Hun because they got lazy, they got proud, they got greedy, and they got absolutely bloated with materialism. And they basically show how the same sickness has hit the Western world, and how now we've got this zombie apocalypse of government politicians who literally get paid for not doing anything. I don't think I've ever seen a time in history where so many people get paid for doing nothing other than fuck up other people's lives. people who sit there basically saying, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't go and fish here, you can't go do that. I mean, now you've got heat officers trying to regulate climate in Melbourne. I mean, the number of people that get paid to do fuck all, basically by government. So it's a little bit like, imagine you've got a business where you've got all these people basically who sit in the business getting paid high salaries and no one's producing income apart from a few people. Eventually, the people producing income are going to either burn out or get pissed off and leave. And so what starts to happen in countries, what they said is that high net worth people get fed up when they see all their money going into stupid stuff and they just leave. So like, for example, there was a classic example in New York where Amazon were going to open up a huge branch office and all the Democrats were screaming and saying they're giving them special tax concessions. So basically them and a few of the rich left there and cut the tax revenue exponentially, and now they're in major financial trouble. So what they predicted is that the zombie apocalypse that's going on, eventually governments will start to run out of money because more and more people will be screaming for government provision, government handovers. They won't be able to fund retirements. They predicted by 2028 that there would be only 2 working Australians to every pensioner. And already, I think we're just about there already. In fact, they're predicting it could even be as low as 1.5 by then. Whereas in 1965, it was like 5 to 1. So what's happening is there's less people producing, and the people who do produce are going offshore. They're working ways around the system. So there's less people to provide it. So how are the government's going to get money or deal with it? Number one, they can print money like no tomorrow, which they've been doing to a degree, but too much is hyperinflation. Number two, they can cut expenses. The problem with doing that is they don't get voted into elections. If they say we're going to cut everyone's benefits and this, then people will scream and not vote them in. The third option is just tax more. And what they predict and what I've been predicting, like in America, they've been increasing taxes on property investors. That's generally an easy target. So yeah, I do think the Queensland was a little bit of an attempt to kind of try it on and see what happened. The one thing of Australia with property is a very big part of our culture. So I don't think it will be as bad as some of the conspiracy theorists scream about, but I do think that with property, that's why I'm a big believer in balancing your portfolio, because there's no doubt that if I was a government and wanted to get some easy money where people couldn't fight back and bully my population, property investors are fairly easy because the properties are fixed to the land. You can't really do like you can with shares, where you can shift the company offshore, move the money into different structures and all that. You're stuck with the property. It's here. You own it. You basically belong to the government. And freehold title, if you actually understand property law, it's not a allodial title. A allodial title is the only pure title where you own your property outright, and very few countries now have that. A freehold means you own your property only at the discretion or grace of the Crown or government. So that means that the fact you own a freehold title, you don't actually own the property. You own it by what's called a possessory grace discretionary right at the hand of the Crown. And most property people don't actually know that. So it's that. So generally, I do think governments will pick on it to a degree, yes. The main thing is to just be staying ahead of the game and realizing that governments, by and large, are running out of money. Some states like WA, I'm glad I live here because at least our government is being a bit financially wise. And weirdly enough, our new Prime Minister is a lot more sensible than the other one. I mean, some of the stuff he's actually been saying, I've been quite surprised how intelligent it's been in terms of trying to mitigate the effect of complete blowout. But there's no doubt that we live in a very entitled culture. People are screaming for financial money, financial handouts, and someone's got to pay for it. And generally, most of the high net worth people are well and truly out the system. And I've got this really good thing called the tax matrix, which I'll just see if I can quickly find it for you. In fact, I know where it is. Just give me 1 second and I'll actually get this up for you and show you the diagram, because this explains really, really well how the system actually works.
And on that note, to a lot of the property investors on this call, it's one of the reasons why I say don't get obsessed with owning the property. Build it, use property to build your wealth, but not as a way to store it, to give you the freedom and the choices and the opportunities to build capital quickly, and then give you more freedom to go out into other forms of assets and spread those.
Exactly. So you can use it with wisdom. Like property is a good investment if you know what you're doing. You just got to know the problems, like with cryptos. So this is the basic system, as I tell people. So 20% don't pay tax, 80% basically do. So the 15% welfare don't pay. They live off basically the philanthropy of the 5%. And the 80% fund basically these groups and these groups up here. So generally, these are the people who are the elite who own the system. These are the people who control the system and people who've worked their way out of it. So these people happily will pay taxes and scream at anyone who doesn't. These ones don't like it, but they'll suck it up. These ones here are kind of like, which I'd say most people on this, probably all of you around here, would be kind of like, we want to get the fuck out of here, and are generally trying to find ways to get into that section there. So yeah, so the more you understand the system, and even things like property. I mean, I'll say this categorically, I'm not a huge property investor myself, more because I don't like going and stuff I don't understand that well. I do some, but it's not my main forte like you guys. I do more other stuff, but if I was going to do more of it, I wouldn't be too fussed about taxes because I would be using foundations in Australia. That's how I'd be doing it myself. I'd be doing a lot of foundation property work and things like that. So, because otherwise with property, it's very difficult to really do an awful lot, because with tax minimization, but foundations is one way where there's ways to do it.
I think that's the biggest takeaway for me tonight, actually, Warren, is foundations for sure. Yeah,
so you just got to understand the system. It's why I literally, using this matrix, I remember back in 2020, I predicted exactly how many people were going to take up the vaccine. And I had people arguing with me. They said, this won't happen in Australia. I said, they're going to get 80 to 85%, possibly more, and they're going to get away with it. And I just did it on statistical calculations. What I did was I used that exact thing. I just said to people, look, I said, these group will have no choice but to take it. I said, these groups will be screaming for everyone else to take it. These groups won't want to take it, but will end up taking it because they want to go to the movies, they want to go to the pub, they want to go to Vegas and get laid before their 19th birthday or whatever, and do anything else they want to do. This group over here, a lot of them will scream about it. Some won't take it, but a lot will eventually give in because they'll need to for income and everything else. So I said, by the time you finished, you're going to get 80, 85%. They're just going to, listen, as soon as they got their 80%, they'll lift the mandates. You watch, and that's exactly what they did. And people said, were you psychic? I said, no, I'm just a good statistical calculator and I just go by numbers. That's it. So that's why using numbers, you can tell exactly what's going to come in the future. So if you're going to get more and more run out of money, and you're going to be squeezing more and more money out of this group here. So you just got to make sure you're finding a way to structure yourself to get as much closer to here as you can and not get too caught in here, because you're going to squeeze. I mean, eventually, once they can't keep squeezing money anymore, they'll just collapse the system, reset it, and start a new digital currency. It's, to me, that just makes logical sense. Because every 90 years, on average, they reset the currency. 1933 was the last major reset after the Great Depression. So on average, every 90 years, they have to reset the systems anyway. So we're not far off due for another one.
Yeah, it's here. They're already testing it.
Yeah.
As we speak. All right, wonderful. My mind is blown right now. I'm just like, whoa, all this information I'm going to take in. This is so good.
This is all I do, though. I spend all my spare time studying every crazy things. Like, you look at my bookshelf, like, for example, this is one of my favorite ones, Secret History of the World. It goes right through the history of the world. Jonathan Black wrote it, anything out there. I'm full of mystery, occult books and religion books of tomorrow. I've got a medical medium book up the top there as well, for Linda's benefit. So this is all I do. I'm literally like a permanent bum who just sits there learning information and then just sharing it to people and getting excited. Like literally, that's my life.
Amazing. Well done. I would love to live in your household. Just be a fly on the wall of Warren, watch him throughout the day.
We have fun because, literally there's just me, my twin sons, we live here. And as I said to people, it's really cool because I live right near the beach. It's an old holiday home. I've deliberately not changed it because I feel like I'm on holiday. I've literally, I have a really great housekeeper who's awake, who turns up, cooks meals for me, got a cleaner who turns up and does stuff. So I'm like, and I've just got 3 guys and we all think the same. And we go every morning and have coffees and hang out. So, and then work our asses off for the rest of the day and then go swimming in the beach. So yeah, absolutely.
What a life. Oh, we will get there, investors on this call. We will get there. I love it. All right.
You just got to decide it. That's my last comment I'll make. If you create an intention that says, this is the life I'm choosing for myself and no other, it's funny how things open up for you. You know, you just decide, I'm not going to accept less than this. And when I was first doing this, there was times that financially cash flow was really low. And I was tempted to go and do stuff. I thought, no, I'm going to stay true to my goal. And it's funny, your mind starts getting creative and you start to find ways around it. So you just got to know what you want and stick to it and not compromise. And I think generally people are too quick to compromise their values. And that's probably the biggest thing I'd encourage people, you know. Oh yeah, my son just said to me a final comment. He said, mention my Centrelink story. Yeah, because when I was really sick 20 years ago, I hit a point where I was so sick, I couldn't work for 2 years, I mentioned, and I eventually ran out of money, you know, because I was on a bit of workers' comp. And when it came time to go to court for my claim, I just had this feeling, and I actually rang the lawyer and said, no, I don't want it, because I thought if I go and workers' comp, I'm basically saying to the universe I'm a cripple, and I refused to do it. So I just literally walked away, gave up my whole workers' comp, everything, to force myself to find a way to get healing. So of course I'm shitting myself because I've got a child, I've got 2 coming on the way. And then of course, eventually I had no money, literally at all, couldn't work. And I remember thinking, now I'm going to have to go to Centrelink because my wife was pretty stressed about the whole thing. And I remember going into Centrelink. This was in 2003. I've never forgotten the day. I'm there with my forms about to line up. And I just sat there and think, what the fuck are you doing? You know, you're a shaman. You know and trust in God. You're going to get healed, you idiot. And I tore up the papers and everyone was just staring in astonishment, threw the paper everywhere, smiled at them and just walked out. And I just drove home and I told my wife what I'd done. And she goes, phew, I'm actually glad you did that. I said, yeah, fuck it. I said, well, we either perish or we get out of this. But I said, nah, I said, I'm going to get healed. I said, whether I like it or not. And literally, it's like it opened the miracle. Like that afternoon, the phone rings. One of our friends rings up Grace, my wife, and says to her, sure, you guys aren't in financial trouble, are you? And she said, why? And he said, I was about to give a big donation to our church. And I heard a voice tell me in the shower to come to your house and give you the money. And she burst into tears, tells me, I burst into tears. And of course, then all these other miracles started happening. And then I met this kinesiologist who did these few sessions on me, completely healed me of this like 5-year crippling disease. It was just gone. These doors opened up, and within 3 months, I had money pouring in, had the exact job which I'd set up was my perfect job and manifested out of nowhere. And that was just because I just refused to compromise. And I just said, no, I'm not doing it. I said, I'm not going to sit here. I said, if I have to learn to live on bloody, you know, on fruit and not eat, I don't care. I said, I'm not going to give up and basically give up what I believe in. And I think I was very inspired by a guy called Peter Daniels. He's one of my favorite. He's a billionaire who went broke 3 times. And he talks about, and he got rich through property. So if you really want to get inspired as a property investor, read anything came about Peter Daniels. He's one of the greatest men I've ever had the privilege to meet. You know, he's a billionaire. He owns gold bullion companies all offshore. He's completely awake to the whole thing. He's taken on the ATO, he and his son. His son taught me how to draft foundation deeds to get around the system. And yeah, they all gold bullion all over the place. They have wealth all over the world. He's a radical activist himself. But I remember I fell in love with him when 20 years ago, I'm hearing him speak in a church I was visiting. And he basically said to all the pastors, he said, all of you guys are a bunch of ballless pussies. He said, you got no balls and you're a disgrace. He said, you don't stand for the rights of your country. You let governments walk. He said, grow up and wake up. He said, I'm sick of seeing you pathetic individuals. He said, most of you give up your dreams and you don't stand because you get a bit of pressure. He said, stand for what you believe in. And he said, and if you want to build a prosperous business, build it and push your way through it. He said, make it work. And I remember thinking, I like this guy. And I've never forgotten that speech. And every time I start to feel a bit weak and cowardly, all I do is I go and search for him and watch him. You know, he just gets you out of your comfort zone, you know.
So good. Peter Daniels.
Peter Daniels, yeah. He's the only speaker I've ever seen get a standing ovation. He came and spoke in Perth at a business event, at a marketing event. And he basically told most of the guys, and I knew most of his guys, they were internet guys, and they ran some pretty scammy kind of stuff, some of them. And he just said, most of you guys are a bunch of criminals. He said, you really are. He said, you got no ethics in business. He said, and honestly, you deserve to go broke. He said, grow up and get some ethics into your business and start running a decent business, giving quality service to your clients and looking after your people. He said, business is about serving your clients, He said about giving a decent service and a fair dollar. He said, don't you dare exploit your clients. And, he just hammered everyone. And then he started teaching business principles, how to grow your company. And we're all sitting there spellbound, writing notes, and walked away. And just really said that you can build a big business by being really ethical. Like, one of my favorite property investors I've ever met is one of my clients. He owns like about 40 properties in Sydney. This guy's an inspiration because he makes an incredible passive income. But in COVID, he went to all his clients and said, if any of you are having any trouble with your rent, you let me know, because I'm cutting your rent. I will not, none of you guys are going to be in trouble. We're going to work this together. He went to one of the local charities, gave him free rent. And so not surprisingly, the guy just keeps getting blessed. Like, every deal he touches, he gets blessed because he's such a generous guy,
Amazing. And that's exactly the reason why we'll do positive gearing as well, because we can handle those storms as well, and we can dish out those discounts when it's needed.
It's good.
Yeah.
No, that's why I like you. I can see you got good ethics, and that's good. I think property, if we have good ethics with property, we can build we can build a good ethical, and right now Australia has a housing crisis, and we really need good ethical property investors in Australia to help people get through it. So maybe you guys can be the ones.
Amen. We can be. All right, Warren, let's wrap this up. We've got one last question for you though, before we do.
Yep.
But is it correct that you've done a little bit of mentoring around manifesting as well?
Yes.
Can you give us one hot tip for manifesting? I don't know if you've ever studied human design. Have you studied that before?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit. So I found out that I'm a manifester. So woohoo, go me.
Manifesting, my basic tip is that whatever you're thinking about all the time is what you eventually manifest. You manifest what you're thinking and feeling, not what you say. So if you're walking around all the time saying, I can't afford this, or you're worrying. So the biggest thing is set your intention clear and don't deviate from it. That's my basic rule. Like, I run a whole manifestation course, and I think there's some free videos if you look on YouTube where I teach it, if you want to look at it. But yeah, I basically, in science, they've taught that literally what you focus on is what you attract, So for example, I just tell people, focus on what you want rather than what you don't want. So don't say, I don't want to get hurt in a relationship, because what are you thinking about getting hurt? An example I give clients is, don't think of a white elephant. Don't think of a white elephant. Don't think of a white elephant. First thing you think of. So don't think of what you don't want. Think of what you want. That's my number one tip. So think about what you actually want. Like, I would like this, or I want a good property portfolio that's making this amount of money, and which I'm doing this good to help my community. Because if you can create an intention that feels good, like if you just say, I have a property portfolio making $1 million income and now I'm rich, yay, that won't really inspire you. Whereas something like, I have $1 million passive income portfolio and I'm inspired, I'm able to do, I'm driving this, I'm able to do this, I'm helping these people, I'm making this difference in society. Yeah, and as soon as you start to feel inspired and your heart open, bingo, you've got it. That's simple.
Amen.
What you want and what makes your heart feel inspired.
Amen. Make an impact. Yep. I love that.
Love it.
Awesome.
Great.
All right. Well, Warren, thank you so much for that. What a good wrap up for this call.
It was fun. Yeah, I love speaking with you. You're awesome.
You are too. And I can't wait to speak to your crowd tomorrow night. It'll be exciting.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'll see some of you guys, come onto our site and come to our webinars, and hopefully we can help some of you structure. So if any of you want that, just, you know where to go to now.
Absolutely. Hit up his website. And I highly recommend signing up to your email list as well. Your team sends out epic emails every couple of times a week. I love them. I've read every single one. They're so insightful. And and definitely follow Global Wealth on YouTube as well. I've been smashing all of your videos. So insightful. And your Instagram as well. Your Instagram page is really cool. So
awesome.
So much free information everywhere.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. You guys are a great group. Honestly, I love you guys. You just got a great energy.
We've loved having you. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks, Warren.
Bye. Bye.